A Trip to Greece, Solangelo OU, by Prettiestpivvo. Chapter 1. Nico's point of view. High school junior year is about as fun as social interactions. Not fun at all. So when the time comes that your school announces the major field trip to Greece, people tend to get excited. As soon as news broke out, it was all my classmates talked about. Oh my god, we need to be together. And absolutely, or I think I'd die. The teachers had told us each hotel room would have 4 people, boys and girls separated, much to the whole year's dismay. I couldn't care less. I mean, being in the same room with one of my best friends, Reina Ramiro Ariel, would have been great. And my other best buds, Jason Grace and Percy Jackson, were whining their asses off about not being able to share a room with their girlfriends. Also friends of mine, Piper McLean and Annabeth Chase. I have no idea why on God's green earth I ever had a crush on Percy. The minute the teachers announced the gender separation, Percy whispered, huge air quotes around that, to Annabeth, complaining about how their plans to eat Oreos and peanut butter at 2 a.m. was ruined. Annabeth had deadpanned. How are you not dead yet? We all knew full well that was her favourite snack. Piper, Annabeth, Raina, and Thalia Grace, Jason's sister, had already planned to share a room together. Percy, Jason, and I were going to share a room as well. Probably just the 3 of us. Nico? Jason flicked my head for extra enunciation. I scowled at him. Sorry, out of my head today. Clearly, Percy spoke through a mouthful of PB&J sandwich, earning a swat from his girlfriend. You been daydreaming with boys or something? All my friends knew I was gay. I had told them freshman year. I wasn't exactly secretive about my sexuality, but I didn't go around yelling it into people's ears. You're far too straight for your own good, Waterboy. Nico stuck out his tongue at Percy. Before Percy could hurl any insults my way, Raina interrupted. So sorry to ruin this cool memory, she deadpanned, but we have to go write down our group names for the Greece trip. Bro, wanna race there? Jason grinned at Percy. Bro, you know me too well, bro. Percy wiped at a fake tear before the apparent children sprinted from the table. Good luck with them on the trip, Piper said, nudging my shoulder with her own as we made our way to the kindergartners. Don't remind me. We got to the line and I joined Percy and Jason as they wrote down our names. As Percy wrote down his name, I noticed him glance at the bottom of the sheet. Hey, do you guys remember Will Solis? The one who helped the nurse when you fell off the lockers? Annabeth giggled. Percy rolled his eyes. Yep, that one. He doesn't have anyone to go in a group with. Guess his other friends went together. Oh, we should totally write down his name with us, Jason exclaimed. Percy and Jason both made puppy eyes at me. I didn't really know Will. He was in the same ancient Greek class, and I think I shared a maths and physics class with him. But then again, I don't know what I'm learning in math, so I could be wrong. Fun. Percy grinned and scribbled Solis's name down under his, then shared a secret smile with Jason. I raised an eyebrow at the two, but didn't have the mental capacity to ask. Jason mentioned he had a class with Will after lunch finished and said he would tell him of the group. Percy double thumbs upped him before he and Annabeth made their way to the library for their shared free period. They claim it was to study, but I bet Annabeth was able to study for 2 minutes tops before being harassed into a makeout session with her boyfriend. Ah, young love. The rest of my day went by at a snail's pace, so I spent most of the time daydreaming about the trip. In my last period, maths, I noticed I had been right about Will being in the same class. I didn't realize I had been staring until he looked up from across the room and smiled. I smiled back awkwardly before quickly looking at the work I should have been doing. Will wasn't ugly, but he wasn't really my type. Right? Right? Shit. This wouldn't end well, would it? At the end of class, I cursed the seating plan, giving me a seat on the opposite side of the room to the door, and for putting Will right next to it, giving him an easy opportunity to talk to me. Hi, Nico! Will had a very beautiful smile. Not that I was looking at his mouth at all. You and your friends are the best for letting me join your group. Guess there are some benefits to helping people after they fall off lockers. Yeah, totally. Super happy to be of service. I rubbed the back of my neck and gave a small smile. Damn, I didn't know this guy at all and was already smiling at him. Next thing I knew, his textbook would start flying. Do you mind if I put your number in my phone, just so we can talk about the trip? Also, I need help with my ancient Greek, and you're the best in the class, Phil asked. Well, that eliminated step one of get a date, Nico's version. Wait, what? Why the fuck am I going through the steps of dating? I don't even know if he's gay. I realised he was expecting a response. I felt my cheeks grow warm. Oh, yeah, sure. He passed me his mobile, and I typed in my phone number and quickly handed it back. Thanks, man. Will gave another enchanting smile and waved. See you around. I waved and mumbled a quiet see you. Fuck, I'm too gay to function. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 2. Nico's point of view. Oh my god, I'm so excited for tomorrow. Percy was boinging around the dorm room he and Jason and I shared. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be super excited when we're dragging you out of bed by the ears tomorrow, Jason retorted. We have to leave our building at 3:30 in the morning, so we have time to lug our bags to where the bus takes off at 4 for the airport. Jason is always up at ungodly hours of the morning, and I don't know how he did it. I could wake up early if I needed to, but I wasn't a fan. Then there was Percy. I'm almost completely convinced he's a vampire. He always went to bed at 3 a.m. and then refused to even open his eyes until absolutely necessary. I was super excited to annoy Percy for once. Nope, I would absolutely be super duper awake tomorrow, Percy scoffed. Plus, we have the blue monster in the fridge. You sure your ancestors weren't owls, you nocturnal beast? You have the wrinkly feet of one, I quipped. Hey! 3, 2, 1. Nico! I sat up faster than I ever thought possible. Percy and Jason were on either side of my bed, wheezing, doubled over and clutching their stomachs. Jesus Christ, I think I'm having heart palpitations. Sense of murder. I told you I would be up. Percy and Jason then promptly fell to the ground as I flung off my covers, grumbling, first kicking Percy in the shin and then moving to the other side of my bed to kick Jason in the elbow. Against all odds, we managed to get all our shit together and be at our bus pickup spot before 6. Annabeth was attempting to calm her boyfriend, who had chugged that monster and was now filled with far too much caffeine in his body to be healthy. Jason was hanging out with Piper and Thalia and Raina. Were conversing quietly. This left me alone with my thoughts. Whether unfortunate or not, my mind drifted to Solace. Since the awkward exchange of phone numbers, I hadn't had much contact with him. He had messaged me on the days just so we both could message, and then again about a week ago, asking me what I was planning to wear on the 9-hour flight. Just as I was thinking this, my phone buzzed in my black sweatpant pocket. I pulled it out, and speak of the devil, it was Will. Will Solace. Hi, I'm just about at the bus stop. Are you guys already there? I lifted my head to see if I could see a bright blonde mop of hair anywhere. No luck. Before quickly typing in a response. Will Solace. Yeah, we're all here ready. We're to the left of the group. Sounds good. I think I see Jason. Thanks, Nico. I shut off my phone and watched from afar as the blue-eyed Will lugged his bags over to where Annabeth and Piper were trying not to laugh as they eyed their boyfriends, practicing a very strange handshake. Annabeth gave Will a small wave, to which he waved back. He then seemed to peer around and then say something. Piper scanned the crowd and pointed towards me. I pretended to watch my strange friends continue their handshake, but I saw Will smile and begin to make his way over to me through my peripheral. I also happened to see Piper peer, interested at me. She turned to Annabeth and asked her something. The blonde girl looked towards me, then looked at Will and smirked, nodding her head. Right before Will managed to get to me, I made eye contact with Piper. She pointed to herself, then to me, then the bus the teachers were beginning to load bags onto. I gave her a confused thumbs up, and then a boy much taller than me dominated my field of vision. Hi, Nico! Oh my god, it is way too early for this. Will groaned into his hands, but he had a smile on his face. He seemed to radiate light in the darkness of early morning Manhattan. Yeah, I got woken by screams in my ear, Nico shrugged. Don't give Percy a monster before 10 a.m. Will looked over his shoulder to the boys who were clapping excitedly after finishing their 5-minute long handshake and let out a laugh. His laugh is gorgeous. Oh, by the way, could I sit with you guys on the plane? There are rows of 4 and my friends are all in their hotel groups. He laughed sheepishly. Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sure the others won't mind. Just letting you know, though, I already called dibs on the window seat, I stated very matter-of-factly. Oh, I'm sure you did. Will smirked at me, and I suddenly had the childish urge to stick out my tongue at him, but decided against it at the last second. Thank gods that would have been... Thank gods, that would have been embarrassing. We all mingled around for another 5 minutes as we waited for the bag line to calm down. Come on, hooligans, called Thalia as she lifted her 50-pound bag with ease so the teachers and bus drivers waiting to load their bags into underneath of the bus. I feel like I packed too much, Will frowned. There was a small crease that appeared between his eyebrows, and it was one of the cutest things I think I've ever seen. I mentally stuck my forehead. This is getting weird. I barely know this guy. Well, too late to unpack now, I declared as the group began to slowly drag their bags towards the bus. Eventually, we got our bags stuffed into the compartment and lined up behind the tired teenagers trying to get onto the bus. As we waited, Piper came to stand next to me. You and I are sitting together, and don't try to argue. I'll win. And we're going to have a long conversation, she whispered. I held in my groan. Piper's long conversations were never something to look forward to. Thank God the drive was only 45 minutes. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 3. Nico's point of view. I huffed as I was practically shoved into a window seat on the left side of the bus by Piper, who then quickly took a seat next to me, albeit a lot more gracefully. All right, love boy, I scrunched my nose. Spill. About what? I asked timidly, knowing full well what she was talking about. I felt my face grow warm. This little soulless boy, Piper smirked. How did she always know these things? There's nothing to say. Bullshit, she quipped. I don't know. He's just kind of nice to look at. That's all, I mumbled. Papa raised an eyebrow. Mm-hmm. Are you sure that's all? He has a nice smile. And he's also really tall. And ha! Clearly a case of Cupid, you slimy motherfucker, she stated proudly. Why am I slimy? Keep your pens on. I don't even know if he likes guys, I grumbled. Don't worry, my little Neeky Neeks. I'm sure you have the ability to turn straight men gay any day of the week. Piper reached over and pinched my cheek. I contemplated biting her hand and then strangling her. I settled for a, hopefully, intimidating scowl. The rest of the ride was mostly talking about a silly game or group. The rest of the ride was mostly talking about a silly game our group liked to play called Mythamagic. I like card games, sue me. The longest ride and the trip itself. Piper showed me some of the photos her family had taken of the pristine beaches when the McLeans had gone on vacation 3 years ago. It's going to be boiling, by the way, she mentioned. When we were there, it went over 100 degrees Fahrenheit a few days. Will's point of view. The bus parked out the front of the John F. Kennedy International Airport with no issues, thank God. The second the bus stopped, people sprang to their feet, desperate to breathe air that didn't reek of Axe body spray, aggressively floral perfume, or sweat. There had been a lot of music through the speakers and chatter throughout the drive, so I also thought I could smell the caffeine and energy drinks on breaths. I had convinced Lou Ellen, one of my best friends, to sit with me at least through the bus ride, since she was leaving me for her group of girlfriends for the remainder of the trip. We all filed off and all managed to eventually grab our own bags, with only some people realizing they had another person's and having to switch. Nico! I called into the crowd. It was difficult to see Nico in all his shortness, but after a few seconds I saw a pale hand reach over the heads of everyone else. I shoved my way through the crowd to the small hand that mine would have absolutely enveloped were I to have held it. Why am I even thinking about that? I demanded an answer from my brain, but when none came, I decided it was just some weird will thing and how I liked holding hands of people. I eventually made it to the group of friends and was pounced on by Percy, who slapped my shoulder, babbled a quick, "Hey, Will," then made his way over to a blonde girl who I was 90% sure was Annabeth Chase, who's in my history class. I made my way over to the shorter, dark-haired boy who was clearly trying very hard not to laugh at the exhausted look Annabeth sent his way. "You weren't wrong about not giving him an energy drink before 10. How long do you think he is until he crashes?" I whispered into Nico's ear, though I had to lean my head down to get to his ear level. Nico tensed and flashed a quick side-eye. When his dark chocolate eyes landed on me, he visibly relaxed. "Sorry, didn't realize you came over," he smiled. He said. I flashed a smile. The large group slowly made their way into the airport, managed to check in the bags, made our way through security, and checked our gate. Well, the teachers checked the gate. The students went to go look in the duty-free shops and restaurants, looking for something to eat for the plane or now. I followed the group of 7 into a small snack shack looking store and bought a packet of Reese's Cups and sour trolley gummy worms, along with a packet of sour cream and chives Pringles. It's a long flight. Don't judge me. As other people at our gate began to line up, students slowly made their way to the line. We all got checked in and made our way onto the plane. The school had basically just booked as many rows as they figured they would need at the back and let the students pick their seating. "I already called the window." Nico ran to a row 21 and slid to the window seat A. Raina behind him claimed the window seat on the right of the aisle in the same row, seat H. Behind Raina was Thalia, who sat in seat G next to Raina, then Annabeth in seat F, then Piper in the aisle seat, seat E. I had somehow wound up behind the girls, so I sat down next to Nico in seat B. Percy sat next to me in seat C, and then Jason was on the aisle in seat D. I turned to look out the window and caught Nico's eye. I gave him a smile, and he quickly looked away. I turned my head to the right and saw Piper, Jason, Percy, and Annabeth all exchange sly grins to each other that I didn't understand the meaning of. The plane took off another half an hour later, and we were in the clouds what seemed like a moment later. As we all began to get comfortable, I pulled out a book from my backpack. Nico, who had his earpods in, pulled his right one out and asked, "What are you reading?" I turned the book to face him. "Heartstopper. Got into the show recently and then started the books. Up to the third of 5, but I only have 3 and 4. Nico sat silently for a few moments, then blandly said, "Nice," before returning his earpod to his ear. I furrowed my brow, confused by his reaction. I shrugged it off and began to read. Not long after, trolleys came around asking for drink orders. I got a simple apple juice. I was determined to sleep on this early as flat. Make up for the missed sleep this morning. I felt very left out, since Percy, Jason, and Nico all got Pepsi Maxes. We were at hour 5 of our flight, and I had made my way through the Reese's and half of my Pringles when I felt a weight on my shoulder and something tickling the skin on my neck, exposed by my sweater. I turned my head carefully to see Nico passed out on my shoulder, breathing softly, his inky hair the tickling culprit. See, I'm a nice person, so I decided to let his head rest there. I also paused music on his phone, blaring through his earphones, which was resting in his lap. These decisions were absolutely not influenced by the fuzzy feeling that was growing in my stomach and the heat boiling in my cheeks. Nah, definitely not. Another half an hour droned by in this position before I felt my eyes get heavy. I put down my book and leaned my head against the seat back before promptly closing my eyes and drifting to sleep. Percy's point of view. Will had fallen asleep 5 minutes ago before his head ended up leaning inevitably to the side and falling softly onto Nico's. I almost burst into flames, fangirling. I turned to Jason, who had clearly already seen, and we had a quick silent scream of joy to each other, and then directed them to our girlfriends, who were giggling madly. Nico was going to combust when he woke up. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 4. Nico's point of view. My eyes felt like they were stuck together with glue when I woke up. I was just so comfortable. My head was resting on something soft and warm. I felt sunlight from the window. I knew I was next to. This was bliss. I managed to pry my eyes open, squinting in the light. I heard soft breathing coming from beside me? No, it sounded like above me? I moved my line of sight up, but I could only see the roof of the plane and my hair, fluffed on my forehead. I looked down. I quite literally almost shot myself. I managed to keep my body from flinching away when I realized my head was on the shoulder of none other than Will Solus. It dawned on me that the light weight on my head was Will's head. On mine. He was clearly sleeping, his whole body relaxed. I wondered how the fuck my raging heartbeat hadn't woken him up yet, because my whole body was pounding. I heard a few quiet snickers to the right and managed to tilt my head just enough so that I could see Jason and Piper covering their mouths in an attempt to silence themselves. Failed at that though, didn't they? Thank God Percy had fallen asleep. The sugar low probably hit him like a truck. I glared at the pair. I then began to contemplate how I was going to free my head, because I didn't want to wake the sleeping blonde. Not that selfish. I decided the safest possible way was to move my hands to the side of his head to keep it aloft while I shuffled out of the sandwich my head was in. I heard Will's breathing change and I panicked. I quickly pulled my head away, and it was strangely similar to the adrenaline of ripping off a band-aid. My hand still held his head, so I tried to quickly lower his head in the slowest way possible. You know what I mean. Shut up. His head was back against the seat, and I had moved to put my headphones back in by the time his eyes flooded open. The sun hit his irises and gave his sky blue eyes a pretty golden tint. I quickly turned my head away as he looked over at me. My recently calmed heartbeat fired up again, and I felt the blush on my cheeks. What I failed to notice in my gay panic distraction was a gorgeous sight of the window. The altitude we flew at provided a scene from above the clouds which looked like a fluffy white floor as the sun set. The beams sent a beautiful light over the sky, turning it oranges, pinks, and purples. The sun was hitting straight through the window onto me, so it turned the air around me from airplane cold to spring day warm. Whoa, I heard Will breathe. I almost looked over at him. No, Nico, bad idea. There was an hour and a half until we landed, so in an attempt to connect myself with some Greek mythology, I put Disney's Heracles on the seat screen, because who doesn't love a little bit of Disney to spice up their life? The time flew by, and soon enough we had landed in Athens. It was a bit of a hassle getting off the plane, having to go to baggage claim, wait for bags, and make our way out of the airport. Despite it being 1 a.m. in this time zone, it was surprisingly warm, enough so that I had to take off the warm hoodie I had been wearing and regretted my clothing choice of sweatpants. It felt like the high temperatures in the early days of a New York summer, and since it was night, that meant it was at its low. Piper told me. I think I might melt while we're here. I glanced at Will. Maybe not just from the heat. There was fortunately another half an hour bus ride There was unfortunately another half an hour bus ride to get to the hotel, but god damn was it worth it. We were staying in Hotel Grand Batang, which might have been hands down the fanciest, most extraordinary thing I've ever seen. Our head coordinator, Mr. Brunner, had wheeled himself to the reception desk once we got inside, where a young woman was looking flustered at the amount of us. Once he came up with 26 keycards, I was pretty sure we had at least a whole floor booked out. Teachers handed out cards and they talked about what to do now. Mr. Brunner handed one keycard to Jason. Though we had just got off a long flight, we were all hungry, and since it was 5 p.m. in Manhattan, we weren't yet tired enough to deny getting some food. The teachers had told us previously that we could do whatever we wanted, so long as it was legal. They had done the itinerary and accommodation, which also had a rooftop restaurant, but we could do whatever for food. Percy, Jason, Will, and I decided to make our way up to our room on the 6th floor. Now, one thing to know about me is that I hate elevators, but there didn't seem to be any stairs, so I was just gonna have to suck it up. We stepped into an elevator, and as the thick metal doors closed, I had to restrain myself from bolting out. I took deep, steadying breaths as it began to ascend. We made it out of the elevator alive and walked down the intricate hallways of the hotel until we reached our room, room 23. Jason scanned the card until the pad turned green, and we pushed through. And holy shit, was I unprepared. Holy shit, Jason murmured, mimicking my thoughts. Whoa, Percy said, clearly bewildered. Bro, look at how comfy those beds look. There were 2 beds, possibly double beds? I don't know, on the right side of the room, and a window facing outward into a manicured bright green country yard. We decided to just dump our bags and meet the girls downstairs, then get something to eat. The restaurant was only a few blocks away, and the food was delicious. We could see the Acropolis from here as well, which looked promising. After dinner, we slowly dawdled our way back to the hotel, our eyes beginning to droop. The travel tiredness was definitely starting to hit us. We all got on the same elevator, and I again tried not to panic, parting ways when the girls got off at floor 4. Percy, Jason, Will, and I made it into the hotel room and began to change and brush our teeth and whatnot, talking about the day coming and how hot it was going to be. I had gotten last dibs on the bathroom, so once I came out, I saw Percy and Jason already in the bed closest to the window, and saw Will struggling to climb into the other bed, the sheets tucked tight. I made eye contact with Percy, and we had a silent conversation. Please don't do this to me. Too bad, so sad. Snooze you lose. Fuck you. Love you too, Neeks. Percy smiled sweetly at me, and I was really tempted to flip him off, but that would have led to unnecessary questions from the others. Will had commandeered the left side of the bed, so I plugged my phone into the wall, began to clamber into the right side. Nighty-night, Percy spoke. Don't let the Greek gods bite. Then he promptly turned off the lights, and the room fell into darkness. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 5. Nico's point of view. Is it hot, or is it just me? It had been about an hour since the lights had been switched off. I was still unable to sleep. Will was just too close for me not to go into intense scared panic, my whole body heating and my heart pounding. This is so unfair. My crush on Percy hadn't been nearly as bad as this. Then again, I didn't have to share a bed with him. Wait, does that mean I have a crush on Will? I wanted to scream into my pillow. I settled with a quiet but heartfelt motherfucker. Also, I was tossing between sleeping on my left side or my back, but sleeping on my back feels all kinds of wrong. It was getting uncomfortable on my left side, and it wasn't helping my current insomnia. But I couldn't switch to the right side. Will was right there. Fuck it, I thought. What's the worst that could happen? So I turned over. Immediate regret sunk into my body. Will's face was about 15 centimetres from mine, which wasn't nearly far enough away. Even though our faces were so close, I didn't go into a full seizure, which is what I thought would happen. His face calmed me. He just looked so peaceful and relaxed, so soft and pretty. He still seemed to be glowing. I planned on asking Will if he had been bitten by some radioactive spider that made him glow in the dark. That would be pretty cool. His whole demeanour made my own feel light and floppy. Soon enough, my eyelids started to close, and not gonna lie, I wasn't exactly upset about having Will's face as the last thing I saw before I fell asleep. Will's point of view. It was still dark when I woke up, thank God. I was so exhausted from the trip here, I definitely need better sleep. I opened my eyes fully and saw a mop of dark hair in my line of sight. I looked down and saw Nico's sleeping face. Damn, he had really nice eyelashes. I was kind of jealous. I could hear his light breathing coming from a slightly open mouth, which I may or may not have allowed my eyes to examine. His lips looked pillow soft, despite the slight chap of them. I really super duper wanted to reach out and touch them. Jeez, this was getting bad. I'm obsessing over a guy I barely know. Then again, that has been majority of my crushes, like Justin Bieber before I knew I was bi, or young Leonard DiCaprio. Guys who had no idea who I was. Guys I would never speak to. Guys I would never share bed with. For fuck's sake. So maybe these circumstances were different, but still, there is no way. I know he's gay, but that doesn't mean every guy he stumbles upon is someone he likes. Oh well, I'll try to figure it out. In the meantime, I should probably be trying to avoid having dreams of the boy in front of me. Not like I just had a dream of him at all. No, sorry, nope. Imagine me popping the P for emphasis. It would fade, just like all the others. Nico's point of view. Sunlight pierced my eyelids, forcing me out of bed. I was still facing the window when I opened my eyes, but Will had turned over during the night. Is it bad I kind of felt disappointed? Probably. I reached over to the nightstand next to my bed, unplugged my phone, and checked the time. 7:34 a.m. I pushed myself up on my elbows, peering towards Percy and Jason's bed, the little traitors. The morning sun was streaming in through the windows we stupidly forgot to close last night, straight into their faces, so it'd probably be up soon. I got out of bed as carefully as I could so as not to wake up the sleeping blonde next to me. I pulled out a pair of jorts and a Batman t-shirt, because I'm Batman, and went to have a quick shower, because I could feel the sweat of last night's freakout sesh before changing. I came out of the bathroom to find the other three up. Well, up was generous. They were conscious at best. Percy had his pillow over his eyes, groaning, Jason next to him, deep under the covers to shield his eyes. Will also only looked half awake, and angelic in the sun, might I add, though he had sat up slightly, a humorous glint in his eyes. Morning, sleeping beauties, I trilled. Percy and Jason both groaned at my far too cheery voice. Morning, short-ass emo. Morning, short-ass emo, Jason mumbled. Percy took the pillow off his face and grinned at Jason, who was slowly emerging from under the covers. Man, I'm so proud of you, bro. That was truly beautiful, Percy said, wiping a fake tear. I rolled my eyes. Come on, you lot. We gotta get down to breakfast. The girls are already down there, and they said the place has waffles. Oh my god, I love waffles, Will exclaimed, bouncing out of bed and into the bathroom to change. Percy, Annabeth says they have some blueberries you can put on the pancakes. And Jason? Piper says she's going to force you to eat avocado on toast. Wonderful. I fished a black bucket hat from my bag along with the small backpack I had been forced to bring so we could put water and phones and portable chargers somewhere during our day out. To give you a brief overview of the schedule, we had 3 days in Athens, today being Wednesday, and then take a short flight over to Crete and spend the next 5 days in Heraklion in the unique blue hotel on the beachfront. So for the next 3 days, the schedule is Wednesday, Acropolis, 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. lunch. Panthetic Stadium, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Then free time for the rest of the day into evening. Thursday is a chill day where we can go explore the city, go look at some shops, buy some things, or just chill in the hotel. And finally, Friday, we go to the ancient Agora from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Lunch, National Archaeological Museum of Athens, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm hoping I've listened enough in ancient Greek to know how to hold a conversation with someone. Around here, we just go with the flow and figure things out as we go. Oh hey, that rhymed. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 6. Will's point of view. After some hassling over who had Jason's sock, packing the backpack Nico had brought, and actually getting dressed and ready for the hot day ahead of us, we piled into the lift and went to the ground floor at 8:20 a.m. Pretty good timing if you ask me. We got out of the elevator and after asking a worker, found the breakfast area. Hey guys, how'd you sleep? Piper stood from the table we had navigated our way to, giving Jason a quick peck. See, I love Piper, but what I really want is some Percabeth type relationship. Even though we just got here, I looked over to Percy staring at Annabeth, endearment written all over his face. Great. Those air conditioners are a bloody lifesaver though, I mentioned. I think I would have cooked under there without it. Piper let out a laugh. Sit down, they gave us some minis and water. We all chatted for a while, talking about the Acropolis and practicing the Greek we all had been learning in school. I did end up getting waffles, and Piper did force Jason to order and eat the avocado toast. I'm not gonna lie, it looked great. I was chatting with Thalia about our shared history class, talking about how annoying our teacher was when Annabeth came and sat next to me. You don't mind if I just chat to Will for a moment, Thals? Annabeth asked. You could talk to Percy if you want. I'm going to pass on that after talking to the child, but go ahead, talk to him all you want. I knew Annabeth and Thalia were close. Almost everyone did. They seemed more like siblings than Thalia and Jason did. What's up? I asked, super nonchalantly. Okay, dude, don't even try to play dumb here, because I will see right through you, Annabeth stated, getting straight to business, I see. Okay. She rolled her eyes. All us non-oblivious girls saw you last night. You were gawking at a short, black-haired boy almost all night. I'm honestly really impressed he didn't notice. Follow-up note, I'm pretty sure boys need glasses for incidents just like this. I ran a hand through my hair, sighing, not quite sure how to respond to something so upfront. I also wasn't sure how to feel about the bland and obvious insults, though I had also been surprised he hadn't noticed. Annabeth, I don't really know. I'm gonna be super honest. I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not sure if it's good or not. The corners of the blonde's mouth twitched up. I'm sure it'll work out just fine. Alright, let's head to the reception and meet Mr. Brunner for the Acropolis. For some reason, Mr. Brunner had decided it would be an amazing idea to walk there, since it was, and I quote, only a 20-minute walk. 20-minute walk, my ass. I could feel sweat in places in my body I didn't know could sweat, and it was only mid-morning. The trip there drew a large amount of groaning and complaining from all the students, myself included, but we finally made it to the entrance. It was then I realized we'd been walking around in the seat all day. At least my tan would improve. We made our way through the main gate, the propylae, and stopped to admire the temple of Athena Nike. We look at the sanctuary Artemis Baron, saw the statues of Athena Promachos, the old temple of Athena, the Parisian, the Erich, of course, the Pantheon, the altar of Athena, the sanctuary of Zeus, Boreas, the altar of Rome and Augustus, and the sanctuary of Padion, as well as the Acropolis Museum. We then made our way down to the Roman part, the Odium of Herodes Atticus, the Stoa of Eumenus, as well as the sanctuary of Asclepius and the theatre of Dionysius Eleutherus. This whole trip took a massive chunk out of the day, and even with the blistering heat, it was actually pretty cool to be learning about all of this stuff. I was also happy because I got to spend the whole 4 hours with Nico. Oh, and his other friends too, of course. We finished up the tour and we all gladly scrambled out of there, scattering around the city to look for some food and air conditioning. Our group ended up heading back to the hotel to get lunch and grab some extra stuff, according to the girls. I was listening to Percy and Annabeth bicker about some Greek mythology I wasn't really comprehending when I caught none other than Nico looking at me. I turned my head to look at him. Our eyes locked for a split second before we both turned away. I felt the already tinged pink of my cheeks go even pinker and grow hotter. Nico had concealed his face with a hand. Raina's head was switching from looking at me to looking at Nico, a contemplative look on her face. I know this is going to sound really cliche and cringy, but I absolutely filled sparks for that millisecond of eye contact. I was freaking the fuck out. He had really pretty eyes, and it was hard not to stare sometimes. Like a really pretty photo you can't stop looking at, kind of similar to that sensation. We all finished and paid for our lunches with no further eye contact or talk to Nico from me and vice versa. Our next destination was the Panathinatic Stadium. They had used it for the first Olympics ever, as well as hosting events celebrating the city of Athens. It also happens to be the only stadium ever made completely out of marble. We looked around the stadium and at the museum for an hour and a half, the heat getting more prominent before we were released by the teachers. Percy, Annabeth, Brina, and I all decided to go for a swim in the indoor pool to avoid skin cancer. I was kind of disappointed Nico hadn't decided to join us, even with Percy and Raina's begging. We would most likely swim together in Crete, since that would be our main source of entertainment there. But still, you win some, you lose some, I suppose. I fell into bed later next to an already asleep Nico that night after a delicious dinner. I had decided to do some reading. There were little lights on the balconies that allowed for my eyes to not want to commit suicide while reading. Before I knew it, it was 11 p.m. I was so glad tomorrow was a sort of day off. Today drained me. I love sunlight as much as the next guy, but too much is absolutely unbearable. I closed my eyes with sweet thoughts in my head and plans for tomorrow, my consciousness slipping away. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 7. Nico's point of view. I got one of the best sleeps ever last night. For one thing, Will was outside reading when I got into bed, so that was a problem for future, half-conscious 3 a.m. Nico. And second, yesterday absolutely drained me. We did so much walking, and it had been so hot, I was worried I would end the trip looking as tan as Will, or as red as a lobster, but who can tell? It also happened that today, Thursday, we had a free day to do whatever we wanted, which included sleeping in, and later doing some shopping. My dad, Hades, and my stepmom, Persephone, had requested a souvenir, and I needed a new pair of sneakers. When I woke up this morning, I thankfully didn't have the sun glaring into my eyeballs. We had remembered to close the curtains before bed, unlike the night before. I blinked a few times as I came to. I hadn't moved much in the night, and neither had Will, thank God. I pulled my arm out from under the covers and unplugged my phone from its charger. I switched it on, and the white light was not at all pleasant. 8:56 a.m. I put it back onto the plug and flopped back onto the soft mattress. I could see beams of light trying to sneak through the edges of the curtains, and if I listened hard, I could hear the bustling around of Greek goers through the streets. I closed my eyes and just listened for a while. I was so deeply calm and peaceful, I almost fell back to sleep. I almost had forgotten entirely about the blonde boy sleeping next to me. Well, that was until he started to shift in the bed. My eyes flew back open. Will groaned quietly. The side of my mouth twitched slightly As I watched him gain consciousness, he opened his eyes and rubbed the palms of his hands into them to clear away the sleep vision. He sat up slightly and looked around the room. As his eyes registered me, I gave him a little wave from where I lay, my head on the pillow. He smiled and gave a wave back. "Morning," he said in a raspy voice. I had yet to hear the morning voice of All Solus, since he hadn't talked much until we had left the hotel room yesterday. I'd heard Percy and Jason's since we shared a dorm. It was kind of hot. Then again, so was most of what he did. "Good morning," I smiled back. This guy was really growing on me. "What time is it?" Will asked, looking over to the two boys sleeping to our right, and then the window, light seeping into the room. "About 9 a.m. How'd you sleep?" "Great. Nothing like a whole day of activities and a good book before bed to send you into a coma," he announced. I laughed. "I'm convinced by the end of this trip I'll have had enough sleep to last a lifetime." He chuckled softly, laying back onto his pillow, clearly conscious of the fact Percy and Jason were still asleep. "Got any plans for the day?" Will spoke after a bit of comfortable silence. "I have to get souvenirs from parents, and then I might get some new shoes and shorts of some kind," I respond. "How about you?" "Might look around for a new hat of some kind, and maybe a painting. I'm a sucker for some good art." We fell silent again, but it wasn't at all strange. I was thinking that this was the way I would want to spend every morning, sharing a bit with Will, saying some good mornings, then laying in peaceful silence. Wow, I was really getting into this. I think it's finally official, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not. I disturbed the silence with the rustling of the bed sheets while I reached for my phone. I picked it up, sent a message to Piper, put it back down, and fell back into the bed. I heard a quiet ping from my phone, telling me it had sent. My heart danced. I then heard a series of pings. I picked my phone back up. Pipes. "I have a question, Will. Shit." "Ha! I knew it. You stubborn bastard. Oh my god, this is so exciting. You'd be so cute together." Of course, Piper had known before I did. It was like she had some kind of sixth sense. I was 90% sure that now all the girls knew, and as soon as the boys awoke, they would be aware too. I just really didn't know how this would play out. I wasn't sure whether or not Will actually liked guys or not. That would be embarrassing. Pipes. Do not take my word for this, but I was in the same homeroom as Will one year, and I overheard him and some of his friends talking about hot celebs, and he mentioned a few guys. Not sure if that could mean anything. I wasn't quite sure how to feel about that. The rest of me clearly did, because a small hope flared through my body, my heart pounding far too fast to be natural or healthy. I didn't want to give my hopes up, but maybe Will liked guys. I crossed all my fingers and toes. I'll figure it out in time, I thought. I still barely knew the guy. Before I knew it, Percy started to wake up, and he tended to stretch a lot when he woke up. He definitely hit Jason with an arm or a leg or something, because Jason groaned and began to wake seconds later. "Morning, hotties," Percy mumbled. I rolled my eyes. Will let out a laugh. "I'm starving," Jason announced, head still on the pillow. "Then let's go get some food," Will said. "Then we'll go into the city and do some shopping." We managed to coax Percy and Jason out of their bed, and we went down to breakfast. We texted the girls, but they said they had gotten up earlier and had already left. They were clearly making the most of their shopping time. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The four of us spent the morning together, walking into small shops, browsing, mostly buying nothing, then leaving. When lunch rolled around, we met up with the girls. As I had predicted, they all smirked at me, sent a small glance to Will, and looked back to me. I flipped Piper off when no one was looking. We went into pairs for a while after lunch. Percy with Annabeth, Jason with Piper, Thalia with Will, and Raina with me. Though Raina lightly mentioned the blonde boy I was falling for, she didn't base a conversation on it, for which I was grateful. We took our time shopping, escaping the heat regularly in shops with air conditioning. Raina bought a few pieces of clothing from shops. I had purchased my souvenirs as well as some shoes, shorts, and a new pair of swim shorts. We all had dinner together at a restaurant at around 7 p.m. that night, and afterwards walked back to the hotel. It had been a quiet, relaxing day. it had been nice to just chill for a day, I feel like I hadn't had that luxury much. Us four boys got back to our room and I announced I needed a swim in the pool. I'll come. I feel like I'm about to melt, Will said, ruffling through his bag to find a pair of bathers before walking into the bathroom to change. I looked back towards the two other boys. Either of you coming? I both wanted and didn't want them to say yes. I'm alright. I'm gonna go meet up with Piper. She wants to tell me some hot goss, apparently. I knew who was involved. Now it's Percy. Nah, Annabeth wanted to show me some books she got about Greek architecture. I'm also going to try to convince her to play Roblox with me. He remarked. Suit yourself. I was actually very proud of my acting skills because my whole body was filled with so much delight and nervousness I thought I would explode. I changed once Will came out of the bathroom, but I also had to splash some water on my face to cool down because, damn, it was gorgeous. The two of us left the room and made our way to the pool. Once we got there, we had to tap our room card to enter. As the door slid open, I got a puff of warm air, and the smell of chlorine filled my nostrils. The pool was empty. We found two loungers by the water to put our towels and Crocs we had worn. I was still putting my stuff down when Will bombed into the water behind me, sprinkling me with water. I turned and grinned at the blonde. His whole body was underwater besides his face. He had a boyish grin plastered on it. I smirked back and jumped in right on top of him. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 8. Nico's point of view. I leaped into the water, straight on top of Will. He yelped, moving out of the way just in time as I fell beneath the water. I swam upward and surfaced. How dare you, Nico D'Angelo? Will scolded, but a smile was stuck on his face. Oops, didn't see you. Sorry, I retorted. Oh, I'll get you back for that. I was trying to decipher the meaning when Will suddenly started furiously swimming towards me. I shrieked and began to freestyle away from him. I managed to find a wall, pushing off it to give me some speed over Will. This pool was massive, so if I didn't drown, we could keep going all night. He started gaining on me. After a few more minutes of back and forth chasing, he caught me. He gripped onto my waist, launching us up from the bottom with such force I had to grab onto his shoulders. As we emerged, I screeched, Okay, truce! Will laughed, a delightful sound in the quiet of the pool. We made eye contact, and I could almost feel gravity pulling us closer before he let go of me and I him. The loss of contact disappointed me, even though I could feel the imprint of where his hands had been like a sunburn. I starfished on the surface of the water, bobbing up and down in tranquility. I could hear Will quietly moving in the water somewhere to my left. I lifted my head from its liquid pillow, moving to the shallow part of the pool where I could stand. Will was sat on the step to get into the pool. The room was sort of like a glass house. The walls were windows from top to bottom, allowing a little bit of moonlight to enter. Will was staring out into the view of space. The sun admired the stars. I thought the term sun was a perfect description of the blonde. As I looked out into the cosmos, it almost seemed like they were admiring him back. Will turned his head and smiled at me. I smiled back. Will tilted his head slightly, staring at me before blurting, What's the best dream you've ever had? I cocked my head, laughing. Oh, geez, I thought about it. The best dream. Probably when I had a dream where my older sister, Bianca, and my mom, Maria, and I all went to the theme park together. It was a nice dream to have. You have a sister? Will questioned. Had a sister. She died a few years back. Car accident. I could feel myself choking up. Only my closest friends knew this. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I don't mean to pry, so tell me if you don't want to answer. But isn't your mom Persephone? She teaches art at school. I nodded. She's my stepmom. My actual mum, Maria, died 4 years before Bianca. An earthquake hit while she was at work. Building collapsed. She didn't make it. I looked down at the water. I could feel tears lining my eyes as I fidgeted with my hands underwater. I heard soft splashing coming near to me, but I kept my head down. I saw the water ripples, and I felt Will's presence in front of me. But that information did not prepare me for what Will did. He hugged me. His tan, warm arms wrapped around my body. Out of habit, I moved my arms around his back, my forehead pressing against his collarbone. I'm so sorry that happened, Will whispered gingerly into my left ear. I let a single tear escape before I pulled myself together and pulled away. Thank you. I've had time to think about it, so I've come to terms with it. Will offered a sad smile. He moved to stand on my left, facing outward towards the windows, like he had been before. We stood there, in silence, for a minute, 2, 5. How about you? I asked in a small voice. Well, I had this dream one time, in Greece actually. I had been at the Acropolis and I met someone who came up to me. We spent our time there, I got a phone number, and we spent lots of time together. I thought for a moment. I wasn't exactly excited for the answer. Did you happen to get any phone numbers at the Acropolis? No, unfortunately not, he sighed. Will then murmured something under his breath that I couldn't quite hear. I only heard one word. Already. I wasn't sure what that was about, but I shrugged it off. We spent another few minutes swimming around, laughing and splashing each other. At one point, I was only a few inches from Will's face underwater. I had quickly swam away, trying to hide my red face. The temperature began to drop as night fell heavy upon the city. I rose up from the water for a breath, to be met with frigid air. I shivered, a small draught hitting my exposed body. I'd only just realized how chilly it was above the water. I'm getting cold. I'm going to head back to the room. Will nodded, following me out of the pool. We grabbed our towels, drying ourselves off, sliding our feet into the Crocs, then making our way back towards the row of elevators and back up to our room. A digital clock in the elevator had told me it was 10 p.m., so I wasn't surprised to find Jason and Percy curled up in their bed, watching young Sheldon on the TV. You want for a shower? I asked Will. No thanks, you go. I love this episode, Will murmured. I shrugged. Treat yourself. I'm going to use all the hot water. My ass for a fucking hotel. I flipped Will off jokingly, even though he couldn't see me. I grabbed my pajamas to go shower. As I strolled through the door, I couldn't help but notice Jason and Percy exchange a look. I rolled my eyes hard. Despite my attitude, I couldn't help but feel warmer than I had seconds ago. Stupid Piper and her stupid gossip club. Fuck her. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 9. Will's Point of View. The morning after mine and Nico's night swim was similar to the previous. Get up, meet the girls for breakfast, meet the teachers in reception, and then leave for our daily activities. We went to the Agora, walked around, got information, and learnt in the sweltering heat. Lunchtime was a relief. We were all also happy about the National Archaeological Museum being indoors and air conditioned. I liked learning about the Greeks and all their beliefs, as well as how they created these sculptures. The day passed in a blur, the heat blistering, so that we were all very ready to leave for the beaches of Crete. In fact, we were leaving this evening. When we got back to the hotel, it was 5:35 p.m. We had been held up in the sun to be told to pack our bags, and that our flight from Athens to Heraklion was at 8 p.m., so to meet downstairs at 6. We would arrive in the Greek islands no longer than an hour after that. The four of us hadn't really done much unpacking to begin with. We were just cleaning up stray snack packets, random clothing pieces, including 3 different socks, and getting our bags in order when Percy said, "Oh guys, you know Lester?" "Papadopoulos?" Percy nodded. "It's his birthday on Sunday, and he's apparently throwing a party." "Sounds fun," Jason said. "Oh, yeah? How about drink-wise?" Nico smirked. "Nico, you!" I shrieked, before Percy rudely interrupted me. "I think he said there would be. He was gonna do it on the beach, so the teachers would be inside and hopefully not realize." "You guys are dead if you're caught. Just saying," I tested. Nico rolled his eyes. "Calm down, sweetheart. We won't die," he murmured. "I have a name, and it's not sweetheart," I grumbled. What in the married couple is this shit? Jason unzipped his bag. I'm headed downstairs. You guys ready? I am, Nico announced. I'm not done yet. My hoodie that I clearly won't be needing isn't fitting yet, said Percy. I just need to finish up a few things before I leave too. We'll see you guys down there, I suggested. The other two left, and Percy immediately forgot all about his hoodie and stared straight into my soul. Hi? I squeaked. So, what is the deal with you and Emo Shorty? I shrugged, trying to act nonchalant, though I could feel my body heating up. I don't know, normal bro activities? Percy raised an eyebrow before returning to shoving his stuff into the bag. Seems like a little more than that. I rubbed my neck awkwardly, sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for Percy to finish up. Well, maybe some small things, but it's probably just all in my head. His zipper closed. I watched him pick up his bags, walk to the door, open it, hesitate, say, Annabeth was right. Us guys really are oblivious, and walked out. I sat, baffled for a long moment before following him and meeting up with the others. We arrived in the Heraklion airport without much drama, and were able to make it outside. It was still very warm here, possibly more so than in Athens. We made it to our accommodation, Unique Blue Resort, which was right next to the beach. I took a deep inhale of the salty beach air, and I could already see the beautiful blue water. We were getting checked in, and made this discovery that each room was only for 2 people. Percy and Jason had been put together, so that left me and Nico. I had grown closer to Nico, so I was actually quite happy about the arrangement. It sputtered out a bit when I realized we would be, once again, sharing a bed. I tried to keep my slight despair to myself. Nico clearly didn't care about my self-esteem. He just outright groaned. He clearly hadn't meant to, though, because he immediately slapped a hand across his mouth. I chuckled, making my way over to him and ruffling his hair. Sick of me already? No, I'm kidding. Calm down, Nico. Nico shook his head at me, though I could see the ghost of a grin on his mouth. Fuck, I really shouldn't be looking at his mouth. Wanna go for a little nut stroll before bed? Nico blurted after a few seconds of silence. I thought for a second, then I decided exactly what move to pull. Absolutely, sunshine. I ruffled his jet black hair, smirking. Nico stood there, looking baffled for a second, before coming to and scowling at me. I smiled innocently back at the boy. He was mumbling under his breath as he put his shoes back on. He stood up, walking towards our door, and as I caught a glimpse of his face, it looked pink. Maybe it was the lighting? Probably that. We left the place and found our way back to the soft sands. The night was still warm, but it was coming down. Small gusts of wind found their way along the sand from the ocean and onto my face. It was a refreshing feeling after the flight, like a dose of caffeine. It gives you a high for a period of time, but you know at some point you'll crash and burn. I knew that would happen, probably once we got back from our walk. The two of us didn't really talk, just exchanged a few opinions on the hotel and its magnificent views and convenience. The silence wasn't awkward though, it just felt nice to be in the Ravenhead's company. Peaceful. Percy's point of view. Holy shit, Annabeth, you gotta come see this, I squealed. Jason and I had come to the mutual agreement that for at least one night we wanted to be with our girlfriends. So we had snuck me into Annabeth and Piper's shared dorm, and Piper into Jason's and my shared dorm. What is it? She questioned, coming to the stand next to me at the massive window we had looking out towards the beach. I was checking out the view when all of a sudden a blonde and a raven head go strolling along the beach. I grinned. Annabeth's mouth almost hits the floor. She turned her head fast enough I became worried she might get whiplash. No fucking way. Yes fucking way. I grabbed Annabeth and she grabbed me and we started bouncing around squealing, totally fangirling. I swear to God, if these guys don't get together, I won't believe in love anymore, she murmured. What? But you still love me, right? I patted, puppy-eyeing her. She side-eyed me before turning fully to face me, her expression solemn. Unfortunately, that includes you, seaweed brain. Oh no! I moaned dramatically, throwing a hand over my forehead in despair. Whatever shall I do? Annabeth attempted to shrug, but was cut off when I lifted her off the ground, bridal style, and chucked her onto the bed. Following after her, pinning her arms down, she shrieked. Guess I'll just have to keep you captive. I guess so, Percy, her grey eyes stared into mine. As much as it pained me to say it, I had to agree with my absolute nerd of a girlfriend. If those two didn't date, I think I would be as crushed, if not more, than either of them. I had a job to do. The job of a wingman. Percy. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 10. Will's Point of View. Nico and I returned from our beach walk, feeling refreshed and a little windswept. It was about 9:45 p.m, and we should probably get some rest before tomorrow's activities. But I had a lot of energy and could tell Nico did too. Hey, do you want to watch a movie before we sleep? I asked while picking out my pajamas. Hopefully it'll make us tired enough to sleep well. Joy glistened across the shorter boy's face. His eyes gleamed. Had I mentioned he had beautiful eyes? Well, he does. I'm sure it would feel like bliss to get lost in them, if only just once in my miserable lifetime. Absolutely. What should we watch? Nico responded. I was thinking something Disney. How about Tangled? Get it set up while I change, and then I'll go get some food while you get ready. The raven-haired boy ran off into the bathroom. I wasn't too sure if this was going to calm him down like I thought it would. Oh well. I flicked through the subscriptions offered on the hotel's TV, finding Disney Plus and clicking it. As the screen loaded to the homepage, Nico opened the bathroom door, chucked his plain clothes back onto his bag before running straight back up the door, called behind his shoulder, "Be right back with snacks." I have to laugh before returning to the TV in front of me. I could feel the sides of my mouth that had twitched up when Nico had emerged like a blur. His dark hair messy in a gorgeous kind of way. I used the search bar to look up the iconic movie and then went into the bathroom to change. I had come out, packed away my clothes, and had climbed under the absolute pillow of the cover, the mattress sinking the perfect amount, as Nico came back into the room. He looked slightly flustered, like he had run a far distance, which he probably had, maybe to expel some of his energy. Okay, I wasn't sure what he liked, but I grabbed 2 Diet Cokes, a bag of chicken chips, sweet and salty popcorn, and some Nerds gummy clusters, he rambled. I grinned. Diet Coke is my favourite. Thanks. I thought I saw a faint pink tint to his cheeks, but it was probably the TV lighting or something. He handed me the drink to put on the bedside table. Both of us had and threw the snack bags onto the spot that would be between us. A distance made me disappointed, and maybe just a little bit sad. Nico climbed into the warm bed on the left side of the bed from the end, closest to the window. He slid under the covers, and soon enough, the only part of him not enveloped by the bed was his head, his chin tucked over the edge of the comforter. I shook my head, a smile on my face, and clicked play. Rapunzel was introduced, and I heard a quiet snort from beside me. I lifted an eyebrow as I looked towards Nico, who had covered his mouth with his hand in embarrassment. What? Nothing, he mumbled, not looking at me. No way, now you have to tell me. I paused the movie. Hey, I was watching that. Not unpausing it until you tell me. I dragged out the E as much as possible. He huffed. I was just thinking that you would make a wonderful Rapunzel, William. I furrowed my brows. Is that a compliment? Take it how you will, the raven had commented solemnly. I rolled my eyes. I clicked on pause. By the time the movie finished, it was around 10:30 p.m, and we were starting to get drowsy. I had finished 3 out of 4 of my drink. 3/4 of my drink. The chip packet was empty, popcorn half full, and gummy balls 2/3 gone. One more? Nico pleaded. Again, gorgeous eyes, extremely hard to resist. Fine, I sighed, secretly happy about this. We decided on a classic, The Little Mermaid. The movie reached the point where Prince Eric had saved Ariel from the beach and had taken her to get cleaned up, when I felt something slump onto my leg. I looked down. The shorter boy had once again fallen asleep in my company. His head had fallen almost straight into my lap. Oh God, his hair was magnificent, the inky black of the mess falling across my thighs. I could hear him breathing softly. I made haste to switch off the blaring TV so as not to wake the sleeping Nico. After the TV had been silenced and turned dark, the only light was provided from the moonlight shining through the large windows to our right. Shit, I thought. That's gonna hurt in the morning. But there was no way that I was leaving this position. I then made a decision. It was pretty stupid in hindsight, but I was feeling bold. I placed my fingers on Nico's mop of hair. I ran them through it. Oh my God, his hair was as soft as a feather, a gorgeous silkiness to it. My hand explored his head of hair a few more times before I heard Nico groan. Shit. I pulled my hand out of his vicinity. Nico didn't open his beautiful eyes, but his mouth began moving. Please keep doing that. It feels nice. His voice was croaky from sleep. It caused something inside of me to fizz and flutter. Pretty damn hot. I tentatively threaded my fingers back through his hair. He made a sound of confirmation before his breathing pattern once again fell back into sync with his previous sleep pattern. I relaxed. This was nice. Lovely. I lifted Nico's head ever so slightly off my leg to wriggle further under the comforter, placing his head back in my lap. I fiddled with his smooth hair until I too felt unconscious, sleep beckoning me. I awoke to sun streaming into my eyes. I looked down. Nico's head was still placed in my lap. My fingers were still in his hair. This is how I want to live life. Is that too much to ask for? It was at that moment I realized I needed cigarettes badly. I decided my safest move was to lift the sleeping boy's head and slide a pillow under where my leg had been. I slowly lifted his head, the ink-colored hair of his sliding off his closed eyes. I successfully lowered his head onto the pillow I had provided. I quickly darted into the bathroom. After that wonderful experience, I came back into the room to see Nico, propped up on his elbows, squinting into the sunlight before he looked over at me. Morning, sunshine. I repeated my nickname from yesterday. He glowered at me, but I could tell he liked it. Shut up, Will. I grinned. Go on, time to get up. No, Nico whined. I rolled my eyes. Am I going to need to drag you out of bed like a child? Go for it. Nico just rolled over to face the window, then decided to shove his face under the covers. Or I might have to tickle you. Nico shot out of bed. I'm up, jeez. I snickered at Nico's fear of being tickled, and we began to prepare for the day. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 11. Nico's point of view. We had just got down the stairs, and Mr. Bruner had emailed all the students our schedules. Since we weren't near too many attractions, we had to go in small groups and go to different attractions. I peered at the group I was in. I had Raina, Will, and one other boy, named Octavian. I didn't know him well, but he was in my science class and pissed everyone off. But besides that, our schedule was Saturday, today, Coolest Fortress from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., a small break at some coffee shop, Heraklion Archaeological Museum from 11 to 1:30 p.m., lunch, and last but not least, the Museum of Musical Instruments from 3 to 5 p.m. Will seemed especially excited for this one. Last year, Mr. Bruner had given us all the Greek gods to research. Last year, Miss Bruner had given us all a Greek god to research and create a PowerPoint on, and Will had been given Apollo, so he knew all about musical instruments. I'm not sure I would have been all that excited to go to some death museum since I had gotten Hades, but I suppose there was a fat line between music and death. On Sunday, the day of Lester's birthday party, we would go to the Agios Titus Church from 9:30 to 10:15 a.m. The Venetian Loggia, which was only a 2-minute walk from the church, from 10:20 to 1:30 p.m. Lunch, and a trip to the Knossos Palace, the home of King Minos, and where the labyrinth had begun, from 2:45 to 6:45 p.m. I wasn't sure what time the party would be. Monday, we had a free day to chill on the beach out front of our hotel and do shopping or just hang out. Tuesday, we would go to the St. George Epanosis from 9 to 10:30 a.m. The Gottison's Museum from 11:10 to 1 p.m. Lunch, then the Agios Petros Church and Monastery from 2:30 to 3 p.m. Then we would head home. Wednesday, we had nothing planned, as we were flying home, which was a 12-hour flight. Hopefully, I could sit next to Will again. I wasn't even trying to deny my obsession anymore. Yesterday had been a fever dream. Anyway, we ate breakfast with the others. Percy and Annabeth had been looking at Will and I. We were sitting next to each other a lot this morning. I'm sure it was nothing. Once we finished breakfast, we grabbed the stuff we had brought downstairs, Rena with us, moving to the entrance to meet our group. We met the teacher who would be with us. Miss Dodds, my math teacher, and the other boy, Octavian, came a minute later. He was tall, pale, and scrawny, with blonde hair and blue eyes, so similar yet so different to Will's own. They seemed cold, while Will's seemed to radiate warmth. Are you and this guy secretly related or something? I whispered into Will's ear, having to push onto my tippy toes to reach it. He chuckled. Totally, Nico. His voice dripped with sarcasm. I smirked, turning my head back to where the tall boy was standing. I thought I caught Octavian eyeing Will up and down. The smirk I had turned to a slight downturn of my mouth before I fixed it to look uninterested. What was this guy's deal? And what was that bitter thing I was feeling and tasting? No, it couldn't have been jealousy, could it? I was dragged out of my raging thoughts when the car who would drive us the 15 minutes to the fortress. The car consisted of 6 seats, 3 in the front and 3 in the back. Rena volunteers to sit in the front on the right with Miss Dodds in the middle, driver on the left. I sat behind the driver, Will next to me and Octavian next to him. I could still see the strange boy staring at Will, with something I couldn't quite put my finger on. We arrived to the fortress, thanked the driver, and got out. As soon as we were out of the vehicle, Octavian pulled Will to the side and asked him something. He thought I couldn't hear him, the little bitch. Hey there, Will. Octavian smirked at a very confused-looking Will. I was thinking maybe we could go out sometime, like on a date. Will comprehended the question and immediately began to look uncomfortable. I hate to seem that way. Oh, when had I ended up next to this beautiful blonde? And when had I given my mouth permission to speak? Shit. Hey, are you alright, Will? I asked casually. Is this guy annoying you? You look a little off-put. Yep, he's completely fine. You can head on out now, Octavian sneered. I narrowed my eyes. I just think maybe you should have actually just had a little itty bit of patience before just asking him out, that's all. I say, but please, continue to ask out the guy you don't know before having to spend a whole 3 days with him. Why do you care so much, Nico? Octavian scoffed. It's not like you two are dating. It then really hit me that Octavian was completely right. I didn't have much right to be bombarding Will's answer to the offer of a date. A sinking feeling entered my gut. Will was now looking even more uncomfortable, and I was almost entirely sure a lot of that was now my fault. Shit, I felt terrible. So I backed off, took a deep breath. You're right, and I apologized, Octavian. I was just trying to help. I'll leave you to it. That had hit like a brick. I walked over to where Miss Dodds was fussing with her iPhone, trying to find the ticket she swore she had, Rena attempting to help her. I couldn't help but slow down just a fraction when I heard Will begin to speak, but I didn't hear his answer. It seemed like the answer would have been no because of his reaction to the question, but maybe he had just been caught off guard by the spontaneous question. Maybe I would ask about it later. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe Will wouldn't even talk to me after that little outburst. I sighed. But later on, not entirely to my surprise, once we had passed through the entrance, Will came to walk next to me. I looked over my shoulder and saw a disappointed look on his face. I said no, Will mumbled. Thank you for trying to help, even if it didn't exactly work. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly. Mine did too, a ghost of a smile gracing my face. I was happy he had said no. It meant I could continue feeling the delusion that was my life, that Will would ever like me back. We spent the rest of the day meandering through our activities at a casual pace. Octavian asked a few more times over the course of the day to see if Will had changed his mind. Maybe Octavian was just as delusional as me. Of course, Will denied him after each offer he received. I had also caught Will looking at me often during the day. Sometimes it was just the whole of myself the blonde seemed to be looking at. But other times it was just specifically my hair or my eyes or mouth. My hair and eyes I could explain. Will had said he liked my eyes, and my hair wasn't half bad, but staring at my mouth was strange. I didn't really understand it, because there was no way Will liked him back, right? I wasn't so sure anymore. It didn't help I had also caught myself looking at the Sunshine Boy's lips either. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 12. Nico's point of view. Last night, Will and I had both been tired, so we hadn't done much. We had seen our friends for dinner, spent some time on our phones, then went to bed at around 9 p.m. We would be out for 9 hours today, so we had both decided getting more sleep would be better. Lester's party was also today. We got up the next morning at 8 a.m. and once again met our friends for breakfast. Everyone was there but Thalia, who had to leave here at 8:30 a.m. for her group. Percy was talking to the others about the party. Are you all going? We have a free day tomorrow, which means we can sleep in, and the party will be so much fun. Feel like I haven't been at one in ages, he said. I suppose we do have Monday free. Okay, why not? Annabeth shrugged. Percy fist bumps the air. Jason spoke next. I'll come, bro. I'll come by, but if it's boring as fuck, which it may well be, I'll be leaving, Piper remarked. I can watch out for any of you idiots in case you get a little under the influence. Will's voice hit my ears from the left, startling me. I'd forgotten he was there. Such a gentleman, I mocked. I'll come. Unlike you, Percy, I actually haven't been to a party in ages. Percy turned away from where he had been facing Annabeth to roll his eyes at me. Why had he been looking at Annabeth? I'll come as well, but I agree with Piper, Raina commented. We finished our breakfast soon after and all began to drift off to meeting places for our groups. The whole day went by pretty quick, despite the heat and the time we spent exploring. Octavian had only bothered Will once, and I had death stared him. Soon enough, we had gotten back to the hotel. Will and I walked side by side through the stretching corridor that led to our room. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. I pulled it out and took a quick peek at the time. 7:20 p.m. Before inspecting what had caused the alert. A message sat at the bottom of my screen from a number that wasn't saved in my phone. I pressed on it and it opened to a text with party details. The number was obviously Lester. I scanned their writing quickly. Party starts at 8 p.m. Will. Room 65 on the second floor. I tilted my hand slightly to see his face. Great, we have some time to get ready. Thank God, he chuckled. I reek like a biodegrading rat carcass. I laughed. Exactly. Dips for a shower. Hey! We unlocked our room, and I grabbed a pair of jorts, a light grey t-shirt, and a black short-sleeved flannel. I made my way into the bathroom and locked the door, starting the shower. I got out 5 minutes later, feeling a lot better, especially after a quick splash of cold water to end it. I changed quickly before combing my hands through my hair to make sure it didn't look too much like a bird's nest. I unlocked the door and stepped out. The air-conditioned room was a drastic change to the humidity of the steam-filled bathroom after a hot shower. Will moved from where he was on his phone, putting it down on his nightstand and walking into the bathroom. Geez, a bit steamy in here, he muttered. Suck it up, buddo, he snorted, then closed and locked the door. He came out after a few minutes. He came out another few minutes later, and good God, he had no right to look that gorgeous. Will wore a loose button-up white shirt with a pair of light blue shorts. Now, you may be thinking, Nico, that is a pretty normal outfit. Shut up, he looked majestic, with rays of sunlight shining on him from the windows. Luckily, I pulled my mouth up from where it had dropped to before Will could see it. What time is it? He asked. Oh, it's. I dragged out the S as I fumbled with my phone, my gay panic session confusing my muscles. The phone was turning on, and then I kept turning it off when pressing the on button. 7:38. Okay, let's go over at like 7:55. He suggested, smiling, and then picking up his phone again. It took me a second to register the question. Yep, sounds good. We arrived at exactly 8. Lester was near the door, the party already in full swing. We quickly said happy birthday and thank you for having us to the scrawny boy, and then made our way to where I could see Percy and Annabeth chatting. The others mustn't have got here yet. Hey guys, Annabeth called over the noise of the music. Hey, Will exclaimed. God, it's dark in here. I think I stepped on 5 feet coming over here. Annabeth laughed. I know, right? The two continued chatting, Percy chipping in every once in a while, sipping on a Diet Coke. Percy had refused to touch alcohol since his abusive, alcoholic stepfather. I didn't drink alcohol often, but when I did, it was oddly nice. It quieted my mind, only allowing the noise of the party and the people around me to enter my train of thought. I'm gonna go grab a drink quickly. Does anyone want anything? I asked, pointing my thumb over my shoulder at the small drink selection I spotted making our way to our friends. I'm good. Thanks, Nico, said Annabeth. Got my Coke, Percy announced. Yeah, I'll have beer, please. Will grinned at me. I nodded and walked off. Will's point of view. We had been here since 8, and it was now 12:30 a.m. Nico had delivered me my drink, and over the course of the night, I had sipped at it. It still tasted far too bitter for my liking. I didn't understand people who could take large mouthfuls of it at a time. It burned in an unpleasant way, though. Is there a pleasant way for your mouth to burn? I checked my phone once again at this time. I checked my phone once again, checking the time. I was getting tired as fuck, and I think I looked a little loony standing by myself. Jason and Piper had arrived, so had Raina and Thalia, and I had talked to them for a little while. Raina and Thalia had been the first to leave. I could somehow hear Piper telling Jason she was going to leave soon as well, asking whether or not he wanted to come with her. It suddenly made me wonder where Nico was. I had seen him a few times throughout the night, since the room was fairly small and there were a lot of people in here, so it wasn't hard to occasionally spot someone. But I hadn't seen him for about half an hour. I decided it would be a smart idea to make sure he hadn't killed someone, or himself, so I began to search the room. He wasn't at the bar, not with Percy and Annabeth, who were dancing goofily together. So cute. The only place I hadn't checked was the bathroom. I shoved my way through the throng of the crowded dance floor, looking for Nico on my way through, to no avail, and to the door in the corner, which hadn't been acknowledged much tonight. I knocked on the door. Nico? I heard someone moving behind the door. I had to wait a second before I heard a quiet voice. Yeah, the voice said. It was slurred and muffled by the door and the noises of the party, but I would hear the slightest tone of Nico in the voice. Can I come in? I asked, my ear pressed against the door to hear the response. Mm-hmm, Nico answered. I sighed and pushed the door open. The Ravenet was kneeling in front of the toilet, and the room definitely had a tinge of vomit stench to it. Poor Nico. He had been alone in here for God knows how long, throwing up and drunk. I felt so bad. Jeez, Nico, are you okay? I hurried over to kneel next to him. Perfectly fine, sunshine. His eyes brightened. Oh my god, well, that rhymed. He got cut off when his face chipmunked and he leaned over the toilet bowl. Shit, I whispered. I stood up swiftly, stood behind Nico, pulled his long, inky black hair from his face, and turned my head away from where he was vomiting. Thank you, the boy muttered, reaching up to flush the contents of his stomach away. He fell backwards and leaned into my legs, resting his body against me. A small smile crept to my face. The boy was sweating, even with the cooler temperatures the hotel room had been set to. Nico closed his eyes, his breathing soft. Nico? I leaned down and muttered, I'm going to take you back to our hotel room, okay? Okay, he mumbled, opening his eyes. I first looked around the bathroom for some kind of bag, finding some trash can liners under the sink and handing it to Nico. If you need to throw up while we head back, do it in that, okay? Nico nodded, then closed his eyes again to rid of what I assume was a dizzy smell. All good. Okay, 3, 2, 1. I kneeled and scooped Nico off the ground, carrying him bridal style. He squeezed his eyes shut, lifting the bag a fraction closer to his mouth. As we were leaving the room, I ran into Jason, telling him Nico had consumed far too much alcohol and we were going back to our room. He just nodded. We reached the hall without further delay. I made my way speedily, but carefully up a flight of stairs, because even though an elevator would have been quicker, I knew Nico would feel sick going up that thing, even with the bag. I'd rather he didn't throw up. I made it to the room, scanning the keycard to unlock the door, and opened it with some difficulty. I sat Nico on the bed and found a change of pants that would be much more comfortable to sleep in than jorts. I let him change while I grabbed the bin from the bathroom to put next to Nico's bed. He was changed and under the covers when I returned, eyes once again closed. I smiled. I pushed his hair back from his forehead again so he knew I was there, possibly only excuse to touch his hair. One of his eyes opened ever so slightly. Do you need anything before you sleep? I asked softly. Water? Food? Nico shook his head very slightly. I caught it though. I ran my fingers across his forehead, then pulled away my hand to get changed into comfortable sleeping attire. Well, I tried to pull my hand away at least. A pale hand shot out from under the duvet at lightning speed, gripping my hand in his. Don't leave, Nico croaked. Both eyes were open now, and they were staring at me like nothing else mattered. He hadn't been vomiting minutes ago. I hesitated. Drunk Nico was a no-nonsense type of guy, unlike sober Nico. I'm just getting changed, then I'll be right back. I promise. I promised. Nico clung to my wrist for another moment, brows furrowed as he contemplated my reliability. Fine, he grumbled. I scurried off and changed, then climbed into the bed beside Nico. I laid far enough from him that he had enough space. I closed my eyes, then I felt something warm moving closer, trying to press to my chest. I opened my eyes which met the top of Nico's head. I looked down at the face of my sleepy boy. Thank you, he murmured. I really like you well. A smile graced my lips. I really like you too, Nico. The Ravenet looked up at me. No, I mean, I really like you. I was confused. I tensed. This couldn't mean. There was no way. Nico, what? I was cut off by the sounds of heavy breathing. I looked at Nico, and he was fast asleep. Shit. I couldn't wake him and demand answers. I would have to wait till morning. Then again, it could just be the alcohol flowing through his system. But a small part of me flared with hope. Maybe Nico had been telling the truth. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 13. Nico's point of view. I woke up to a soft breath tickling the top of my head. It was warm, cozy, and comfortable. It smelled like warning dewdrops and crisp wind. I didn't want to open my eyes, so I didn't. I continued to lay as I had been until I felt movement where my head was resting. Why was my mattress moving? The pounding headache hit me a second later. I groaned, squeezing my eyes closed, moving my hands from where they had been cupped in what felt like another person's hand to rub my temple. I felt a heavier breath reach my hair. Then a hand ran its fingers through it. My eyes opened, but all I saw was a grey wall. The strange scents were definitely being emitted from whatever sat in front of me. I tilted my head upwards, and there was, once again, Will fucking Solus. Jesus Christ, what in the hell is happening? I couldn't see much sunlight from my position, but I could see Will's hair practically glowing, meaning three things. One, He was blocking the sun from my field of view. Thank you. 2. He had forgotten to close the curtains. 3. He looked like a god. Like, I'm 90% sure he had turned into the Greek godfather. I made a choking noise. He had already been wrestling around, and my vocal cords pulled a quiet groan from his own. I was still staring in awe, disbelief, and utter love at the boy in front of me when his eyelids opened, immediately finding my eyes. It was too fucking early to be having direct eye contact with the most gorgeous man in the world. Will smiled down at me lazily. Hi. I made another choking sound, then cleared my throat and tried again, never taking my eyes off Blondie over there. Hi. Are you feeling better? At that moment, the headache decided to make a reappearance. I winced at the throbbing. He chuckled. I have some aspirin. I can grab it for you. It took me a moment of Will looking at me expectantly to realize my hands had moved to his chest and were gripping his shirt, disabling his ability to get up. Oh, shit, sorry, I mumbled, pulling my hands away, like Will's shirt had been turned to molten lava. He threw the medicine at me from his bag, then moved to the sink to fill a glass of water for me to swallow. Will sat cross-legged on his side of the bed as I gulped the tablet, draining the water afterwards. He began to fidget with his hands. What? I asked, sitting down the up. He didn't make eye contact, like he had realized something just seconds earlier, and it was disturbing him. Do you, happen to remember anything you said last night? Panic flooded through me. What had I said? Shit. It could have been anything from revealing my crush on him to telling him about my fear of elevators to admitting my top artist on Spotify was Ariana Grande. But try as I might, my fuzzy, drunken thoughts had removed themselves from my brain. No? Did I say something bad? I didn't tell Annabeth Percy's cheating with Jason, did I? Will let out a small laugh, then sighed. No, you're all good. Just thought I heard something you said before going to sleep, but I probably imagined it. I was suspicious, contemplating whether I should pry the information from him. I decided to cut him some slack. I shrugged at him. His body seemed to deflate, somewhat, and I was once again overthinking what it was I could have possibly said. We had all of today off, so in our group chat with the 8 of us, we decided to meet on the beach. Will and I had spent a large portion of our morning, so the sun was already high in the sky when we made our way onto the fine white sand, beach towels in hand. Well, Nico, a female voice called. I turned my head to find Piper waving at us from a beach chair provided by the hotel, umbrella shading her from the heat rays. Sitting with her was Annabeth, Percy, and Raina, who had dragged 8 chairs and enough umbrellas to shade the whole section of the beach. I waved back, and Will followed me over to the others. The hot sand filled my Crocs, but I ignored the burning sensation, desperate to get into the shade as soon as possible. I think I'm going to be burned alive in this heat, I grumbled to Will. Will snorted. Wouldn't be surprised, Ghosty. I feigned offense before greeting the 4 already there. Where's Jason and Thalia? They went to go find some ice blocks from the hotel store, Percy said, stretching his long limbs across the beach chair. Will and I dumped our stuff on the sand next to 2 chairs. He hesitated to drop his towel before moving to a different chair next to Annabeth, a little further from me. I frowned, confused. We both smeared on some sunscreen to hopefully protect us from any nasty UV. The beach was packed, families with kids, couples, and friends spread along the coast. The clear blue water had people swimming about, splashing each other for relief from the heat. We sat for a while, Thalia and Jason eventually coming back with 8 ice blocks, which were already beginning to melt. I caught Percy staring at me in contemplation a few times. I don't know what he was looking at. All right, Pepper stretched up from her seat, standing. I'm going to collapse into a sweat puddle if I don't cool down. Anyone care to join me for a swim? Oh my god, yes, Will groaned, prying himself off his seat. I was still confused what I could have said to make him move away from me. Jason, Raina, and Thalia all moved into the water with Will and Piper. I wasn't that hot yet? I'd go in soon, but I was surprised when Percy and Annabeth stayed behind. Hey, Nico, Percy said, him and Annabeth moving chairs to sit next to me. Hey, what is it? What? What? We can't just chill out with a friend on a Greek beach? Annabeth asked innocently. Yep, something was up. I deadpanned my face at the two. Annabeth nodded, giving up the trade. Okay, cut to the chase. We were wondering if you knew why Will didn't sit next to you. Seems strange, I frowned, so it wasn't just me. Well, I don't know the exact reason, but Will took me back to our room last night when now it's Annabeth's turn to deadpan me. Inebriated myself? Anyway, he asked this morning if I remembered anything from last night, and I don't. And then he said he thought he heard me say something, then we came out, yeah. Ah, shit. Percy rubbed his face, then looked at Annabeth. She looked back at him before looking to the ground and thought. I stared at both of them. What? Do you know why he's ignoring me? I asked, a bit embarrassed to find some desperation lurking in my voice. I think we've got an idea as to why, said Annabeth. Let us talk to Will. Want to come in the water now? I nodded. Wasn't like I had anything better to do. Will's point of view. Wadding and diving my way through the water has to come in the top 10 best moments of my life. The sweet, cool relief was exquisite. Piper, Jason, Rena, and Thalia were all in close vicinity, dunking their heads underwater, splashing each other, floating on the surface. I turned around to the beach, spotting Percy, Annabeth, and Nico talking. I winced internally. I felt bad for sitting away from Nico, but I didn't exactly know how to feel. I still wasn't sure about what had happened last night, and I didn't know what to do. Soon enough, Percy and Annabeth made their way down the beach, Nico following them into the water. Percy and Nico stayed together, Percy wrestling Nico into the water, almost immediately joined by Jason. Annabeth walked her way through the water to me. Here they were, she smiled. I grinned back. Hey, Annabeth. We both just stood, chest deep in the ocean, staring at the three boys, wrangling each other. Nico climbed onto Jason's shoulders, shrieking as Percy tried to knock them both into the water. I smiled. Annabeth turned her head, catching my smile. Well, I have to ask something. Confusion swirled in my head. Of course, what's up? Annabeth bit her lip in thought for a second, then asked, What do you think Nico said last night? My mouth opened and closed like a goldfish for a second. How? You seem to be acting weird around Nico, she said, once again looking at the boys. You don't have to tell me, but I have a feeling this could turn out how you're wanting it to. I blushed, sighing. Well, we were in bed about to go to sleep, and Nico said, I really like you. And so I said, I really like you too. And then he said, No, I really like you. And then he fell asleep, and I realized Annabeth was standing, looking flabbergasted at me. Are you serious? I furrowed my brow. He definitely said that, yeah. Yes. She shook her head. No, I mean, how are boys so unaware, I'll say. What do you mean? I asked. Annabeth clapped her hands, and I could feel her brain cogs turning, forming some kind of plan. Okay, well, let's do something about this, before it's too late. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 14. Will's point of view. Okay, Will, let's do something about this, before it's too late. I scratched the back of my neck, feeling heat rising through my body, even in the cool water. And what exactly does doing something entail? Annabeth's face split into a mischievous grin, once again looking at Percy, Jason, and Nico, the former two being chased through the water by the latter, trying not to get splashed, before setting her stormy eyes straight on my own. You're going to ask Nico out, and before you reject the idea, she held up a finger, so I shut my mouth, I'm going to help you come up with a plan. I mulled on the idea for a second. Yes, it was true. I don't know at all if I'm ready to ask this amazing boy out, but I also knew I wanted to. It helped that it was Annabeth helping. She could plan for just about everything. All right, I say, admitting defeat. But when Annabeth's eyes lit up, I knew I had made the right decision. So, Since this is kind of sudden, I think we should do it after the trip is over, just so we don't rush anything. Annabeth thought aloud. I nodded along. Once we get back to school, we could all hang out or something, go to the park, and then you could just ask Nico to talk and ask him out. I frowned. I think I'd rather do it properly, in private. Especially if we kiss, said my heart. Don't be stupid, said my brain. Annabeth grinned. You guys are perfect for each other. Nico's point of view. As I was hauled over Percy's shoulder, I got a quick glimpse of Annabeth and Will talking. I saw them both look at me. Will's cheeks flushed slightly. I didn't catch much else, since I was thrown underwater from Percy's shoulder. Once I emerged, I scowled at Percy, who was snickering into his hand. Almost all thoughts of Will left my mind once I saw Jason and Piper creeping up behind Percy. I tried, I promised I did, to keep a poker face. Percy caught the laughter, threatening to burst from me, turned and was tackled down into the water. Ah! Splash! I doubled over in laughter, wiping tears from my eyes as Percy disentangled himself from a strand of seaweed, grumbling to himself. As I began to calm down, Percy was seaweed free, aside from his brain, and Jason and Piper were grinning at him. I felt a hand on my shoulder. My instincts told me to immediately shoot my fist backwards, which hit something hard. Ow! I spun around and was faced with Will, clutching his chin, but grinning nonetheless. Jesus, no one told me you could throw a punch, Nico. I quickly moved towards him, grasping his face gently in my hands, staring at his chin in worry. Shit. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I thought you were a random person. I'm sorry. Is your chin okay? Will interrupted my rambling apology. Nico, it's fine. It didn't hurt that bad. Just surprised me. He laughed. I breathed a laugh. Sorry, Will. He grinned and called. Okay, time to dig a hole. Who wants to be buried alive? Percy threw up his hands, then grabbed his girlfriend's and raised it against her will. We volunteer! Annabeth groaned, but smiled at her. I wonder if I would love like that. Hours later, the sun was beginning to set. We had dug up Percy and Annabeth from where we dug a gaping hole in the sand, sat them in it, then used the dug up sand to cover their bodies, effectively trapping them. We had sent Annabeth and Thalia to get 2 bags of chips for us to share while watching the sunset before grabbing some dinner and then heading to sleep. It had been a warm, beautiful day. I had only got a little sunburnt on my ears, which was a win in my books. Jason and Piper had decided to retire for the night, while the rest of us sat in a common room on the 3rd floor. Percy had his arm wrapped around Annabeth's shoulder, the blonde's head resting on his shoulder, both sitting on a velvet couch. I sat next to Will on an identical couch to theirs, on the other side of the rug. Raina and Thalia sitting in 2 armchairs placed facing out to the large window, giving us a view of the glittering night sky, illuminated by the moon and a few lights on the beach. My head was rested on the back of the couch, staring into the beautiful sky. While I focused mostly on the sight, in my peripherals I caught Annabeth giving Will a look and gesture to me. I felt the couch move as Will lowered his mouth down to my ear. He got close enough I could feel his breath on my ear and hair. It sent shivers up my spine, goosebumps forming across my arms. I rubbed my hands against my forearm when Will whispered, "It kind of reminds me of you, you know?" I scrunched my eyebrows. My head turned to face Will's. His cerulean eyes bored into mine in a way that set my heart pounding. We were closer than I had thought, both bodies and faces. In that moment, I forgot about Raina and Thalia, Percy and Annabeth. I only focused on the golden boy in front of me. What do you mean? Will tore his eyes from mine to look into the night sky. The night sky? It's dark, yes, and you can't always see much of it. But there's bright, beautiful parts to it. The stars only shine in the darkness. The moon only rises when the sun disappears. It reminds me of you, he repeated. I felt my face heating, knowing my ears were reddening from something other than a sunburn. He was looking into my eyes again. My lips parted. I so desperately wanted to kiss. But then a sound suddenly broke through my foggy brain. 4 sets of footsteps were padding away from the common area, sounding lighter and lighter as they trampled down the hallway towards elevators. Will and I were utterly alone. I returned my gaze back to Will's. I saw longing in his eyes. They weren't directed at the top half of my face, though. He was staring straight at my lips. He would occasionally flick them up to meet my eyes. He ran his tongue over his bottom lip, let out a breath, then began to speak. Nico, look, I haven't known you long at all, but there's just a part of me that can't seem to stay away. It's like a magnetic pull. I really haven't been sure what to do with it, but I think I'm fairly certain that it is. I'm fairly certain what it is I've been after. I would really, really appreciate if you would allow me to kiss you. I opened my mouth wider. Well, he interrupted and began to ramble, pulling away slightly. I'm sorry. I know I probably should have given you some time, and you probably don't want to kiss me, and now you think I'm weird. And oh god, sharing a bed is going to be weird because of me now. Shit, this is all my. He was interrupted when I grabbed his face, pulled him close, and did something reckless that maybe I shouldn't have, but it felt right. I kissed well. Aww. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 15. Nico's point of view. My lips tingled on Will's. This was a sensation that was almost indescribable. I closed my eyes and let myself melt into the boy in front of me. He had hesitated for a second, but soon moved one hand to my waist, the other on my neck. He pulled me closer. I shoved my fingers into his stupid, gorgeous, soft hair. I tilted my face slightly, and it somehow became even better at this angle. After sitting for who knows how long, enveloped in each other, I had to break away to breathe. Our eyes were both open, Will's wide and bright. I could see a reflection of the sky from the window in his irises. There was no sound aside from our light panting. It was then that Will launched himself at me, wrapping his arms around my whole body, and I almost fell backwards off the couch. We had both wanted this, and it felt amazing. Eventually, we pried our lips apart. Oh my god, we just did that. We just kissed. I stared at Will, and it was the best. Will said in a sing-song voice, moving away from me, if only slightly. I grinned at him. Nico, would you like to go out with me? I tapped my finger against my chin, pretending to think. We'll have to laugh. You're killing me, D'Angelo. I'd love to. I laughed. I don't know if I've ever smiled this much, nor this big. I gave him a quick peck. Well, tried to. Will deepened it, and we stayed there for another few minutes. I broke off his lips. Come on, Solus, we gotta get back to our room. Will groaned like the drama queen he is. Fine. We walked down the hallway to the elevators, our fingers twined together. Will pressed the up button. As we waited for the lift to arrive, I attempted to calm my nerves about the metal death machine by asking, wait, what was it I said when I was drunk? Will snorted into his right free hand. Well, let's just say it helped me do what I did earlier. I comprehended that for a second. Blush sprayed through my face when I realized. I said I liked you? I shrieked. Along with grabbing my hand with some unknown strength you possessed when I tried to go change. I let go of Will's hand and covered my face, groaning in embarrassment. I'm never drinking again. Good, it's bad for you, he laughed, placing his arm around my shoulder. The elevator dinged and the door slid open. Besides, it was cute. I rolled my eyes, grabbing Will's hand again. My blush still hadn't disappeared, but it had dulled, my face only a bit warm now. The elevator slowed to a stop on our floor. I took a quick peek at Will's face. He was staring ahead, looking as ready for anything as ever. I liked mine. His face seemed to be stuck in a huge, beautiful smile, his pearly whites shining in the dim hotel light. We found our room, pressing the card onto the scanner until it went green, and pushed open the door. In comfortable silence, we got ourselves dressed into sleep clothes, remembered to close the curtains, set our alarms for the following morning, and clambered under the covers, sheets cool against the heat of the evening. Both of us had turned onto our sides, staring into each other's eyes. My eyelids began to feel heavy, but I had one more question before we fell asleep. What does this make us? Will pondered it for a moment. Well, I'm totally happy to be your boyfriend, if that sounds right with you. I felt my whole body warm. Boyfriend. I had a boyfriend, and it was Will fucking Solus. Sounds perfect to me. I leaned forward, pressing a light kiss onto Will's lips. He wrapped his large arms around my body, pulling me close. We stayed like that, even after our lips separated, even after we had switched off the light, even after I was the only one still awake, even after we were both asleep, the sound of the ocean lulling us both. The next day passed in a hot blur, and soon enough we were packing our stuff back into our suitcases, preparing for the long flight ahead of us. It was about midday when we decided we were done packing. Alright, nice job, boyfriend. Will had been non-stop trying to use the word in replacement for my name. I smirked at him, raising my eyebrows. He smiled back innocently. Oh, by the way, I said, Annabeth texted asking if you, me, her, and Percy want to go down to the beach for one more walk before we leave. The others went to do some last-minute shopping. Yeah, sure. We met the pair in the downstairs lobby, the sun shining through the glass doors that opened to the beach. The sky was a gorgeous bright blue, no clouds to be found. The sea was clear and pretty, as it had always been. We made our way down the beach, chatting about everything and nothing. Percy had found a small clump of seaweed on the sand and decided it would be a wonderful idea to chase down Annabeth with it. She shrieked, darting down the beach at a pace I had never seen before. With the other two so far down the beach, I stopped Will. Hey, I grinned at him. Hey, he grinned back. I wrapped my arms around his neck, the feeling both new and familiar. I think this will be a trip I never forget. Will scoffed. You would hope so, considering we fell for each other in a week and shared a bed on multiple occasions. I smiled wider at the seemingly glowing boy in front of me I could now call mine. I pushed myself slightly onto my toes. Will seemed to pick up what I was putting down. He kissed my lips. It was soft and perfect and beautiful. The setting, the people, I couldn't have asked for a better trip. We found Percy and Annabeth again, and we made our way back to the hotel, grabbed our stuff, and left Greece to go back to boring old Manhattan. Well, maybe now was a little less boring. Percy's point of view. After Annabeth and I ran down the beach, we eventually stopped to catch our breath. We were both giggling hysterically. Annabeth turned around to look at me, but something over my shoulder caught her eye. Her face split into a grin, and she pointed. I turned my head, finding Will and Nico just as they kissed. My jaw dropped, and I knew what I had to do. I whipped out my trusty Polaroid camera that I tried with the string that I had tried with the string around a loop on tied with the string around a loop on my hands, just in case. Annabeth snickered behind me, obviously just as thrilled as I was to this occurrence. I snapped a quick photo, the crystal clear water shining in the background, the sun reflecting off its surface. The photo printed from the camera, and I shook it as we made our way back to the new couple. Nico's point of view. It was now Thursday, and I had gone out to grab some food for us starving roomies. I unlocked our door and saw Jason sitting at the kitchen bench, then saw Percy stride from the hallway leading to the bedrooms. Welcome home, sweetheart, he remarked. I rolled my eyes. I put the bag of food down onto the kitchen bench. I'll come help with some lunch in a second. Just let me plug in my phone real quick. The others began unloading the paper bag as I made my way into my bedroom. I reached for my phone charger from the floor, plugged my phone in, and was about to make my way to the door when someone on my pillow caught my eye. I did a double take and saw it was something on my pillow caught my eye. I did a double take and saw it was a Polaroid photo. I picked it up. It was of me and Will on the beach. That son of a bitch, Percy. I grinned, dropping the picture onto my phone and left the room. A Trip to Greece, Solangelo AU, by Prettiestpivvo, Chapter 16, Epilogue. 10 years later, Will's point of view. Greece was a place I remembered. That trip changed my life. Nico and I had been dating since that day in Heraklion, since we were 17 years old. About 3 months ago, I decided on something, a big step for both of us, that I had yet to reveal to Nico. What I had revealed to him, though, was that we were going on a holiday with Annabeth and Percy to Heraklion. I had invited the two, who almost immediately knew why we were going to Greece. I lost my hearing for 2 hours after that interaction. Percy had proposed to Annabeth 2 years before. on a pier by their favourite lake. She had, of course, said yes. The wedding the wedding happened a year later in the summertime. That wedding had got me thinking, and I finally realised, yes, this is what I want to do. All four of us met up at the airport at 6:30 a.m. Annabeth and I both practically dragging our significant annoyances behind us. The flight was long and tedious, but we all conversed easily and got ourselves through it. I had gotten major deja vu when Nico had fallen asleep on my shoulder during the flight. I giggled with Percy and Annabeth this time. Our plane flew to Athens, where we would catch a connecting flight to Heraklion for another hour. I think it was at this point Nico started to suspect something was up. After we rode in a taxi to our hotel, which just so happens to be Unique Blue Resorts, and got our room card and numbers, which also just so happens to be the same room as 10 years ago, we dumped all our stuff and went to get some breakfast since the sun was rising. Ooh, can we please go shopping? It's not every day I get to come here, Annabeth pleaded. I grinned at her. She would help me stall until sunset later today. We roamed around the shops for a while, Annabeth playing the act perfectly. The sun grew hot over our heads and we grabbed a quick lunch before heading back to the hotel. We went in the water and to the beach until about 6:30 p.m. I had Annabeth take Nico back up to the rooms to change. Percy and I sprung into action. I grabbed the pair of clothes I had brought in our beach bag and shoved them on the first floor lobby. Percy had already begun sprinkling rose petals into a rough circle and path. We had asked the hotel to do this, so we knew it was okay when I began lighting candles and digging them into the sand. 45 minutes later, we were ready. The sky was turning orange, so I sent Annabeth a text. I was so nervous, I started to tap my bare foot into the sand. There were a few people who were watching us create the scene, and they were all eager to see my proposal. Waiting until I saw him in the glass doors. I snorted. Annabeth had tied a t-shirt around his head to cover his eyes, and his hands were outstretched, trying to figure out where he was. Annabeth, can I please take this off now? I heard him plead. Fine. Annabeth smiled so wide it probably hurt as she pulled the makeshift blindfold from his eyes. It took him a second, but he stared at the beach and his jaw dropped, chocolate eyes wide. Then he spotted me. I didn't hear him, but I saw him mouth. Will? Tears forming on his waterline. He made his way down the path slowly, as if still not believing this was real. Tears were falling freely down his face now. He finally made it into the circle we had made, only 2 feet in front of me. I smiled at him, tears filling my own eyes. I bent down, getting on one knee. I could hear Annabeth sobbing quietly behind Nico. Nico D'Angelo, I started, pulling out a black velvet box. I opened the lid, revealed the diamond ring I had chosen with Annabeth's help a few weeks earlier. You have made me the happiest man ever. You always bring out the best version of me, and I like to think I bring out the best in you. Nico let out a half laugh, half sob at that. I smiled wider. I love you so, so much, and I would be so honored if you would marry me. Nico took a deep, stuttering breath. You're so stupid, of course I will. He started full on crying when I slid the ring onto his finger. I felt hot tears streaming down on my face as well. People were cheering on the sides. I held his waist, brought him close, and kissed him. I heard the snap of the Polaroid that time. I love you, death boy, I whispered. Nico laughed and wiped the tears running down his face. I love you too, sunshine. He whispered back. We turned to Annabeth and Percy, the former who was crying in earnest, the latter also crying, while pulling her close. I winked at him and laughed. Thanks, wingman. He laughed and winked back. You're welcome. And that is it. That is Chapter Grace. That was a fun one. A little bit awkward for me to read out loud, but it was fun. And words, there was a couple mixed up. I was like, what the hell am I reading? Well, thank you for listening.